Michael Scofield, an engineer, a genius, cold-blooded, quiet, but above all, a big brother. Lincoln Burrows was tried for a crime he didn't commit, sentenced to death for murder. The day of his sentence was approaching, and the cold decisions of the system were about to erase his life step by step. Michael did something no one else could do. He erased his own life, just for the sake of an idea. When he volunteered for the Fox River Penitentiary, he carried not just a shirt on his back, but a plan. But this plan was not an ordinary plan. A map worked out vein by vein, cell by cell, a journey carved into his skin. Escape, time, strategy, justice, all hidden between the lines of a tattoo. But the interesting thing is, Lincoln was unaware of this plan. His brother had suddenly become his cellmate after many years. No hello, no reason, just looks. Silent, cold, heavy looks. Michael didn't tell Lincoln anything. Every day, every night, he passed by without saying anything. Lincoln had thousands of questions in his mind. Why are you here? Did you really commit a crime? But Michael didn't answer. He was an ordinary prisoner on the surface, but deep down, he walked with a mind that planned every step. Which pipe leads where? Which guard patrols when? Which screw is loose? Which wall is empty? It was all in his mind. It was all for everyone except Lincoln. For Lincoln, this situation was becoming unbearable. As if being inside wasn't enough, his brother's silence was building him a second cell. A cell surrounded by invisible walls. He tried to feel hope, but every day he was drowning in silence. What about you? As you counted down the day of your execution, if your brother were just silent. He saw you every day but said nothing. Could you trust him, or would the gnawing doubt weigh heavier? Michael was testing not only the plan but also the faith. When he shared the plan, the margin of error could grow. One word, one look, anything could leak out. But leaving Lincoln out, isolating him, this was perhaps the biggest risk of the plan. Intelligence is half the plan, trust the other half. And Michael was only playing one side this time. I wonder if this gamble would cost them their lives. The day of the escape had come. Michael had woken up to that day when he had worked out every detail of his plan step by step. Fox River Penitentiary seemed like an ordinary day, but behind the walls, a system that worked like clockwork had been set in motion. And the creator of this system was a single member of a one-man team, Michael Scofield. The pipes, the connections, the passages, the locking systems. Everything had been planned days, weeks in advance. Today, nothing was a coincidence. But there was a problem. Lincoln still didn't know about the plan. Maybe Michael was afraid of his reaction, or maybe he didn't see fit to carry this burden on him. The time was 15:42. Michael walked as if he was going to his daily work, but every step opened another door. Every look he took measured the angle of a camera. Every stance analyzed the guard's behavior. Inside, Suker, Teabag, C-Note, they all sensed something was about to happen. But Lincoln, he was still standing in the middle of the silence. 17:13. Michael creates unexpected tension in the infirmary. The guards are distracted. At that moment, he opens the first passage under the pipe cover. Everything is measured in seconds. Michael's mind now works like a computer, and the only goal to get out. But this time, he's alone. When he arrives at Lincoln's cell, their eyes meet. Michael doesn't say anything, he just nods. Now. But Lincoln doesn't move. Hesitation, fear, and maybe lack of trust. At that moment, Michael makes a decision. He will continue the plan alone. The door closes, time is running out. The escape begins. Passages, corridors, narrow pipes. Michael crawls, he breathes, he runs, he moves through the tunnels he built. He opens the passages with the codes he has hidden in his body. He goes out. The night is quiet, but inside, a storm is brewing. Lincoln is left alone. Michael escaped alone. So was this escape a success? Or Did it turn into a betrayal? Michael was free, but inside, he had never been so squeezed. He had left Fox River, but in his mind there were still bars, because Lincoln was still inside, and the clock was ticking against him. Outside, it wasn't as easy as he thought. Inside, there were plans in motion. There was order, but now, Michael was in the middle of chaos. Hundreds of people, thousands of eyes, cameras, police radios, every level of government considered him a criminal. But he had one goal: to save Lincoln. He was alone. There was no one he could tell his plans to. This time, his tattoos weren't working either. Time was running out, and Michael had to plan again. Step 1, gather information. He found the prison's external electrical infrastructure, streetlights, camera systems, emergency protocols. He analyzed them all. He had to think like a hacker, not like an engineer. Step 2, find the weak points, guard shifts, dining hall hours, security passages between cell blocks. He redrew them all, but this time he wasn't inside. An intervention from the outside would be more dangerous, more noticeable, more difficult. Michael wasn't just making a technical plan, he was also playing a psychological gamble. It was one thing to figure out the system, another to beat time. He worked silently every night. His eyes, reflected in the light of his laptop, were now sleepless. His hands were shaking, but his mind was still clear. He found a way out. At the back security gate of Fox River, there was a loophole that was only active during certain hours, and that loophole lasted exactly 7 minutes. Was it enough? Maybe not, but he had no choice. The plan would start working, and this time there was no way Lincoln wouldn't know anything. Michael had to see his brother one last time, a sign, a look, maybe a single word. Get ready. Because this was the beginning of a war. This time it wasn't weapons. It would be intelligence, speed, and courage. And Michael, he had already made the first move. The morning of the execution had come. The prison was extraordinarily secure. The sirens were silent, the lights were steady. Everything seemed as it should be. But for Michael, this morning was the moment when everything would change. The plan he had been working on for days was now set into motion. And this time, it was not from the inside, but from the outside. The time was 03:48. Michael, in a small warehouse, at his computer. On the screen, Fox River's external electrical system was on. Schematics, protocols, emergency exit systems, all before his eyes. The time was 03:53. He entered the codes. A test simulation. He calculated the seconds of delay. There were 11 seconds before the backup system would come online. Those 11 seconds were the heart of the plan. 03:59. Red text appears on the screen. Ready. Michael takes one last deep breath. Now. 04 Iuquak. The power goes out. All of Fox River goes dark. The cameras are out. The security systems are locked. The sirens start blaring for a moment, then stop. The guards are panicking. Communications are out. The backup generator kicks in late, but it's too late. At the same time, a black van pulls up from the back door. The doors open. 3 people get out. Their faces are masked. Their movements are synchronized. Michael watches from a distance. The second phase of the plan begins. They sneak inside. They move like shadows through the halls. A guard is knocked out. The security room is infiltrated. And then they reach Lincoln's cell. They pick the lock. Lincoln is shocked. He doesn't understand what's happening, but he knows one thing. Michael is still fighting for him. The masked man nods. Now, Lincoln is escorted out. Down a narrow corridor, into a back passage, into the van. 0409, the escape is complete. The van disappears. Fox River is still in darkness. Michael is on the roof of a building, lost in the night. A single voice echoes in his earpiece. Mission accomplished. But that was only the beginning. Not just Lincoln anymore, Michael too, officially a fugitive. And this time, it wasn't just time that was after them. A whole system was on their trail. Morning had come. Fox River had still not recovered from the power outage, but now this story was not of the prison, but of the fugitives, Michael and Lincoln. For the first time in years, they were side by side in freedom, but silence was between them again. They were sitting in an old cabin on a campground. Not a police voice, not a siren, just the howling of the wind and their labored breathing. Lincoln stared at Michael. He was not angry, but there was no answer. He asked Michael, "Why didn't you say anything?" Michael took a deep breath. He didn't look away. His voice was determined, but fragile. "Because if you knew the plan, you would have given up. You wouldn't have believed it as much as I did." They both fell silent. At that moment, words had no meaning anymore, because everything had happened, and everything had changed forever. They escaped, yes, but were they free? That was perhaps a question that could never be answered. Michael pulled a piece of paper from his bag. He had mapped out a route, new names, new cities, a new life. But this time the plan was different, not to survive, to stay together. Lincoln was still silent. He thought, if he knew the plan, would it really change? A voice inside him said, yes, but it didn't matter now because it had happened. Michael turned on a small radio. There was news. The mysterious escape at Fox River is still under investigation. No names given, but everyone knew who they were. Michael stared into the distance. He spoke in a whisper. Plans work, but people change. Lincoln sat down next to him. For the first time, they stood shoulder to shoulder. For the first time, they were running away together. But this escape, not just from the walls, from the past, from the guilt, from the regret, it was a way to get away from everything. Run isn't always escape. Sometimes it's just going to another prison. What if it were you? Would you share the plan, or would you walk alone for the one you love? This is not the story of one man. This is the story of a decision, and every decision comes at a cost. The escape is complete, but the price, that is still to be paid. See you in the next What If episode. Remember, the answer to some questions is hidden only within you.